Hi, welcome to Shared Frequencies and the Space Between, where heart meets brain and life happens in the messy middle.
We're two best friends navigating a new chapter, sharing a space, finding our rhythm, and tuning into life's transitions.
This is a space for deep and meaningful conversations about growth, connection, and everything in between. Let's tune in to today's frequency. Hi, and welcome to episode 14 of Shared Frequencies and the Space Between. This episode is called Frequency Interrupted, Renovation Reflections.
Well done.
So hard for me to say. Yes, Renovation Reflections. My name is Elle.
My name is Dawn.
And we have just completed a kitchen renovation.
Yes.
I kind of forgot we did the podcast.
Well, I hadn't forgotten. It was there. I was kind of like going ready to get back to it, and I knew we would. And I was aware that our first back was going to be talking about the kitchen renovation. Renovation, it was complete pull out and redo. I mean, it was beyond renovation. It was a complete refit.
Yes. Yeah. No, it was a total demolition, followed by a complete refit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a big project, but and it was months in the planning.
Yes.
I think I had my meltdown in beginning of February.
Yeah, proper meltdown about it.
Yeah. Like the straw that broke the camel's back, the final drop that got my cup runneth over.
and just so people know, we did it all ourselves, apart from a little bit of plumbing.
Yeah.
We did it all ourselves. We have never done a kitchen build before.
No.
We did the bathroom a few
Yes.
years ago.
Yeah.
But we'd never tackled the kitchen, so it was a first. It was a first for us in that regard.
Yeah.
So months in the planning. 12 days of hard work. Yes.
It was, I mean...
one or two little bits still about that. But
yeah, we have like bits and pieces, you know, the final touches, like the final little panels on the skirting board and panels around the countertop and like little things like that, like small things. But we've also taken a lot of time to just sort of like step away from it because it has been very intensive. Yes.
Oh yeah, I mean, today, when I woke up today, there was just nothing left in my muscles today.
Yeah. And when I woke up Sunday last week after the really hard work for me had been done, and I was returning to work Monday, I was a zombie.
Yeah.
Don't break into the cranberries. I was done for.
Yeah.
It's been.
We will share a before and after picture.
Yes, yeah. That will be our first.
Socials.
Yeah, our first actual sort of social post that's not the
podcast.
Yes,
it will. It will. So that's it's been good. It's been challenging.
Yeah.
But for you, it was really important.
It was.
The kitchen was like, it was a room within the flat that you just didn't get on with. You didn't, you know.
That's the right way to put it.
Yeah.
That's exactly the right way to put it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when I bought the flat or apartment almost 5 years ago, I didn't do much the first wee while. The walls were newly painted and I said to the seller, I was like, oh my God, if I get this house, like I'm going to keep all of the colours on the walls exactly this way. Like this is exactly how I want it. And her brother is a painter decorator. So he's obviously been in and fixing, you know, touching up and doing things before they moved out. I'm assuming because everything was like spot on when I moved in, which was excellent. And then I had that first night in the shower after we moved in. And I had a breakdown. Yeah. So that's how the bathroom fitting came into play about 6 months after moving in. Yeah. But then I've lived with the kitchen for almost 5 years.
Yeah.
It was this awful brown colour, and I don't remember if it was you or if it was my flatmate at the time, but suggested vinyling.
Yes.
So I added vinyl to the cupboards and made it look so much nicer.
Yeah.
So I've been able to live with it for 5 years. But the kitchen was always really cold.
Mm-hmm.
And as we've discovered, there was absolutely zero insulation anywhere in the kitchen.
Yeah.
Like nothing. Creaky neck. So it was always really cold. And then about a year ago, we were up at an event and someone suggested to me to get a thermal curtain to hang across, and how that had changed her life with her sort of like sunroom to keep the heat out during the summer so her flat didn't get overheated. And I was like, oh, that's a brilliant idea. I could do the reverse of that.
Yep.
So I think, did we go get that in November, October?
Something like that, yeah. Something
like that. And you helped me install it. So that was before you moved down. And that really changed the temperature in the living room.
Yeah.
But it obviously also changed the temperature in the kitchen.
Yeah.
Because that meant that the heat wouldn't get into the kitchen.
Yeah. Because there was no heat. There was no heat source in the kitchen.
No.
Yeah.
So I've had some serious issues with like tea bags going moldy, and my olive oil and my honey crystallizing because it got so cold, and like just lots of little things. And the kitchen wasn't set up with purpose. It was just,
Well, it was a hodgepodge of different bits and pieces that had just kind of been put together.
Oh, it was a Frankenstein kitchen for sure. Yeah. So yeah, in like late January or beginning of February, I had a meltdown, and I was like, "That's it, it's happening."
Yeah.
And then you just jumped on it and started thinking things through and thinking through the process of how it would be, and like went into planning mode. So you've been working on this kitchen for a while. Yeah.
Well, just taking what you wanted, and as best as possible, seeing how we could do it, and seeing how it could be done. I mean, and you did get somebody in to give you a design and a plan and a price.
Oh yes, that was like 4 years ago.
Yeah. So, but again, it's like when you go that route, you kind of get what you get almost to a certain extent. You can put units here and you can put units there, but there's some restrictions on you. You can't go bespoke unless you're wanting to pay huge amounts of money to get somebody to come and do it.
And it was also the way that he designed the kitchen would not work for me. Like it was just, it was a really bad design, and it wasn't thought through. And as we discovered, obviously in conversations in the process of, well, hey, you can add this here, you can add that there, and we can do this here. And I was like, that won't work for me.
Yeah.
Because my experience of it being 5'3" versus you being 6'2".
Yeah.
Is a very different experience. Like, oh, we can raise your cupboards up to this, and I'm like, but then I can't reach it, not even on a stepping stool.
Yeah.
So, and then.
But then we kind of did both, because what we did was we kept the wall units kind of standard height, but we went for a taller unit.
Yeah.
So you got the extra storage, which you desperately needed.
Yeah.
And the upper shelves are just used to store stuff that's not frequently used. And you have your step stool. Yeah. Yeah, and you now have your taller step stool.
I have a taller step stool now.
For that very reason. So it was a lot of sitting down, doing a drawing, thinking about it, going, does that work? Does that not work? And like right up until we started the work even after we'd done the tear out, and then there was a last minute change on the sink, on the direction.
Yes, because what was it that brought that around? It was Oh, so there was a box around the boiler.
Yeah.
And we had thought that we could raise it a more significant amount than what we were able to, simply because of stuff that was there.
Yeah, what we discovered once we took the box off.
Yeah, fully off. Yeah. So in the conversation with the plumber, when we were talking about, where does everything need to come out, and how does the waste of the sink and all of that, I sort of seen in my head, visualized how working in that space would feel like if the sink had flipped, as we had initially talked about. And then in that conversation with the plumber, I changed it because I hadn't, it just didn't make sense in the space that was in my head. But that wasn't a conversation we had out loud until we had it with the plumber.
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah, so in that regard, you've now got the kitchen that you want.
Yes, and I'm so unbelievably happy.
Yeah.
You did make a suggestion when we started just sort of drawing up the plans. You're like, maybe getting underfloor heating would be a good idea. And I was like, I don't know. Underfloor heating in the kitchen, it feels wasteful. Will I ever have it on? Would I ever actually use it? And it felt like an unnecessary expense for something that I wouldn't have. Where I was like, when you're in your bathroom, if there was underfloor heating there, and you'd be like, you would feel it, and and you're like, well, you spend a lot of time in your kitchen. I'm like, well, yeah, I guess I do. And you're like, and you don't really wear slippers or socks. And I was like, no, I don't. And then you're like, then why would you not? And it also brings in that heat source.
Yeah, exactly that. And because we weren't entirely sure, we knew the kitchen was tiled. I was fairly certain it was concrete directly under the tile, but we didn't know that for certain until we took the tile out. Because I was fairly certain that was the biggest problem. It was just a slab of concrete with tile straight on top of it. There was no insulation in the floor. And in Scotland, the ground is like, it's not quite permafrost type situations we have, but that you can lose a lot of heat.
Yeah. And it turned out you were right.
And it turns out that was the case.
Yeah.
So putting in just a thin layer of insulation and the underfloor heating, the electric mat underfloor heating, will, I was confident that was going to help.
Yeah.
And it's helped way more than I envisioned it would.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we won't have really experienced it as of yet because we've had some really, really hot days, but it's going to be very interesting to see over winter.
Yeah.
I'm very excited for that.
Yeah.
But already we spent so much time in the kitchen.
When I've been working in the kitchen, I've been having to lay on the floor to do anything and whatnot, and we've been had underfloor heating on. It's just been like, I'm just going to stay here.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's not hot, but it's warm.
It's warm, and it's
comfy.
I was about to say, it's so comforting.
Yeah.
So already we're spending so much more time in the kitchen than at least I have for a very long time. Yeah. And it was so interesting. So I was in a conversation with a friend of mine. She called me one day. And we were just chatting about things. And I was like, oh yeah, by the way. She's like, I'm so sorry, you're probably working. I was like, nope, building kitchen cupboards. And she's like, what? It's like, oh yeah, we're doing kitchen renovation. Sorry, I just forgot to tell you. And she was like, that's so cool. So we're talking through it, and she was like, oh my God, you're going to get so excited, and you're going to enjoy your food so much more. Yeah. And I generally believe that we get additional nourishment from the food that we eat if it's made with love and if it's made with attention and, just joy when you make the food.
So many chefs say that, don't they?
Yeah, exactly. And I generally believe that. And I think she's right. And that was something that I hadn't thought about, that you know, because I've not enjoyed the kitchen and I've not enjoyed being in the kitchen, like I'm going to go a little woo-woo, but the energy just felt off.
Yep.
In the kitchen.
The frequency was off.
The frequency was off. Yeah, and it just feels like a completely different space.
Yeah.
Like it generally just feels like it feels like it belongs to the house now rather than an afterthought.
Yes.
Like it was just disjointed and it was just Yeah. It feels like it belongs now.
And a lot of people doubted our time frame as well.
Oh yeah, the amount of people were like, "Oh, it's gonna take you at least a month and a half. At least a month and a half." And I was like, "You don't know us."
We did a bathroom in a week.
Yeah, exactly.
Done a kitchen in 12 days.
I mean, we were very close at being able to do the kitchen in 7 days.
Yes.
If there hadn't been, so there was some really confusing and sort of out of left field breaks that were put in place. You know, touch wood. We did not run into any big things in the kitchen whilst doing it. No. Nothing. Which I had been a little worried about. I was very worried about the floor. I was like, oh, God knows what we're going to see when we get down there. Like, what's going to... Are we going to be able to, like, fix it or no? Or, you know? So we didn't run into any massive things. But then my dog pulled a muscle in her back and I had an absolute panic attack in regards to that. I was certain she was going to die because I thought she'd had a tear in her, you know, intestines and things, and it was
she was struggling to get up on the sofa.
She couldn't move, and she couldn't, like, bowel movements and things. It was just, you know, but she was eating and drinking, so I knew she was relatively okay, and she didn't run a fever. But it was just like that put the brakes on for half a day. And then you had a little bit of a health scare, which put brakes on for half a day. And then just as we were getting ready to put the final piece of the laminate flooring down, we realized that the boiler was leaking. So we had to sort of like put a hold on it there and
deal with that. So and just on the health scare thing, so people, you know, because people will be thinking, I found a lump on my chest. I didn't find... I'd had a small lump there for a couple of weeks and I hadn't done anything about it. And all of a sudden decided it wanted to become a massive lump. So it turns out it was just an abscess, a sebaceous cyst, I think is they call this the technical term for it. So I ended up on a course of antibiotics. It subsided. It's nothing overly serious. But yeah, it had me worried.
And it had me very worried.
Yeah, because it just ballooned within a day and a half.
And then we had to wait because it was the bank holiday weekend, and it was just. And
I wasn't registered with a doctor here, so I had to get.
So that took a couple of days as well.
So that kind of slowed us a little bit. You know, so.
And then having to wait, on other people. You know, because we work very differently to other people. We work at a very different pace, and we work just so well together. And we really, like, complement each other. So when I'm all flustered and overstimulated, you are just the calm. And when you are very in your head and overstimulated, I will most likely have some food ready to try and bring you down.
But it was also, we had to chat about this ourselves. It was kind of like how actually we do both. We're both that you're a very much let's just get it done. Let's
that was so interesting.
Let's do it. Let's just, like, the example we talked about was when we were reinstalling the washing machine. And it was the drain hose, and I'm kind of like, it would be really good if we could put it through the gaps, like we.
So I was sat inside the cubby hole where the washing machine was going to go in, putting all of the wiring and the hose and everything through the spaces that you had cut in the cupboard back
for the
pipes and for all of that. And I was just handed a hose and I was like, put it through here.
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay. And you're like, no, try and see if you can get it through one of the other bits. And
Yeah.
I was like, I looked at it and I was like, there's no way.
Yeah.
Like, there's no way that this plastic demi-doodah at the end of the hose will go through. And you're like, no, it's okay. And I was like, no, it's not.
Yeah.
So I'm going to put it through here.
Yeah.
So I did a very quick assessment. I looked at the size of the plastic demi-doodah on the end of the tube and looked at the size of the hole and was like, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
The physics won't physic.
Yeah. So that's how you work. It's just like, it'll go through there, that'll get it done, let do it.
Yeah.
Whereas I'm more of a like, okay, let's take a half a step back, have a look at this and see if let's see how we can make this work.
But also, how can we, like, is there a better solution?
Yeah.
Is there a neater solution?
Yeah.
Is there a smoother way? That the end result, like, the process will be more complicated, but will the end result be better? Where I'm like, this is a solution, it works, let's get it done.
Yeah, that hose needs to get to that point, and I've done that. So
I can take it off my list.
Yeah, so and I was just like, okay, and I realized at that point I was just like, actually, because we were both tired. It wasn't that we were nipping at each other, but we were both tired. I was just like, okay, I'm just going to go with that. That's fine.
But if you had told me, well, the plastic thing comes off the tube.
But here's the thing, I didn't know at that point.
Yeah, and that's the thing.
And you were just so keen to get this hose through, didn't matter where it went through, because I would have taken the time to look at it and go, all right, it's not going through because there's a plastic bit on the end.
But I could see that.
But I couldn't because you were sitting on the other side of the thing.
Exactly.
So I just went like, okay, right, whack it through and sort it from there. So, and it wasn't until I looked at it and gone back to it afterwards and stuff, and then I went, all right. And when I was going to connect the app, that I realised there was this plastic piece on the end that actually had to come off to connect it into what we were connecting into. And I went, that's what was stopping it going through the hole that I thought it should have gone through.
Yeah.
So I just moved it. And I was like, I don't need to tell you that. I don't need to tell you that I moved it. But then I was like, no, I'm going to tell you that I moved it because it's quite amusing.
Oh, it is.
So where you're the one that's just like, let's just get this done. Do. I want to get things done as well. But my solution to that is to take a few minutes or to take the time to look at it and see what we need to work out. Whereas you're just like, I'll go through that hole and it'll reach the bit that it needs to reach.
But unless I'm given a specific set of criteria where it's like, well, it's important that it's higher because it needs to drain the water and therefore from there going through, it needs to be as high as possible. If I had been given instructions that way, I would have been like, okay, well then let's see if there's a solution to get it through there. Yeah. But it was just like, you just need to get it through a hole where it fits. Yeah. And it didn't fit through the other holes,
So, but it was but that's it. It was just like, I take a more analytical approach to it, whereas you're more of a just like, this will work. But it's also you have more information. And it's not that one way's better or one way's worse.
Let's just let the doggy out. She rang the bell. There you go.
You are mic'd up, so we can still talk. And it's not that one way's better or one way's worse. And actually, what transpires when we work together is we get the sweet spot.
Yes, we do. Yeah.
And I have less episodes of getting stuck in my head thinking about things, and you have less of the let's just I'm not I sound like I'm doing you down, but it's not
you are a bit, yeah.
It sounds like I'm but it's not.
No, I know that.
I admire that in you, and it's just like it's the little battering ram in you.
Yeah, I don't.
That just is always pushing forward. Yeah. Whereas I'm quite happy to take a little retreat, analyze, and then see if there's another way forward. And that's not, and that's what I'm saying. I'm not presenting that as a better. My approach is a better way. It's just a different way of working. It's just a different personality.
But that's the thing. I like, and you're absolutely right. You're a lot more analytical than I am. Yeah. A lot more analytical. But I will process the information that I've given. Right. Yeah. I don't think necessarily forward, and that's where you are. Like, you think those 7, 8, 9 steps ahead.
And the 1,000 different variations.
Exactly,
yeah.
and all the other variations. Okay, well, if I do this on step 3, then these are the options. And if I do that on step 4, then that's a different outcome. And like, you do all of those calculations, and I don't. So I don't.
You find a more direct path.
No, but it's also, I will process the information that I'm given. I'm a bit like ChatGPT in that sense, right? Where I will process the information that I've given and the directions that I'm given. But if I'm not provided with additional information, I won't go looking for it.
Yes.
Just in case I need it.
Yes.
I would be like, well, you told me to do this. I did that.
Yeah.
If you told me it's important that it needs to be done here or that way, I will go find the information I need to solve that. But unless I'm being told that that's important, I will find a solution that works for now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas I want to find a solution that works long term and is the best possible solution that can be found. Whereas you're right, you're like, that's a solution. It gets us to where we need to be.
Well, because you told me that I needed to do this.
Yeah.
I did that.
Absolutely.
You didn't provide me with additional detail. And I think that was where, like, I get really overstimulated, and in this project I got really overstimulated and frustrated, but not like frustrated, just like having to take a step back.
Yes.
When you are doing those calculations in your head and running through those 8,000 ways of doing things, but you're only feeding me half sentences and like broken instructions, and then you come in and you take over instead of guiding or like being like, okay, but it's important that we do it this way because you just go, well, it's just, and I'm like, but you're not giving me enough information for me to process this right now, and I can't. You're going too fast, and I can't keep up, and you're not letting me catch up. And then you take over, and that's where I'm like, fine, whatever. Then you just do whatever.
And it was the opposite of that with the pipe through the sink thing. It was just where I was like, just like, where I had actually gone, right, stop running at the 1,000 different permutations in your head and just go with it. Just let the hose come through, and we'll take it from there. Yeah. You know. So yeah, I was listening to a podcast earlier on. It was Russell Howard, and he was speaking to Dave Gorman.
Okay.
And
do you want to clarify for people who are not from the UK?
Russell Howard and Dave Gorman are a pair of comedians.
They're a couple. So they're a couple of stand-up comedians here in the UK. Russell Howard had a television show for a while. Yep. And
as did Dave Gorman.
Oh, he did. Okay. So TV personalities, but comedians.
And it's not really important to the story, other than it was Dave Gorman was telling about how his comedy is very analytical. You know, and he was talking about his childhood, and I can't remember if it was him or it was a story he was relaying of somebody else, but it was to do with being in maths class, and there was a maths problem that was presented, and there was 3 possible answers, and they'd asked the class which of the 3 answers was the correct one, and the first pupil puts their hand up and says it's so it was like 24, 36 and 49 was the 3 possible answers. First student puts their hand up and says 24, and the teacher says no, that's the wrong answer, and Dave Gorman puts his hand up and goes 36, and the teacher goes, well done, that's the correct answer. How did you work it out? He says, well, I didn't work it out, but I knew it started with 2 times, so it must have been an even number, and little Johnny had already said 24, which was the only other even number, so the only even number left was 36, so that must have been the answer. And the maths teacher at that time had congratulated him for arriving at the answer in that way.
Oh, that's unique.
Because mathematicians should always do the least amount of work possible to arrive at the resolution, the answer or whatnot that's involved. And I think that's how my brain works sometimes. It's whereby I see the answer, but I don't necessarily know the workings.
That's your ADHD pattern recognition.
Yeah. So that's a slight aside from the kitchen thing. It was just kind of like, and so sometimes I don't have how
ability
to get there, because my brain's just jumped there.
Yeah.
Subconsciously, it's done the thing, you know. And I suppose everybody gets it. It's kind of, you're looking for the answer for something and you can't find it, and then you'll be standing washing the dishes and the answer pops into your brain even though you've not been thinking about it.
Yeah.
So
or you wake up at 3 a.m. in the morning and you go, catfish! Like, what the fuck?
Yeah, you know. So everybody has everybody does it, but my brain does that a lot.
Yeah.
Because I don't think it would I could possibly consciously keep up.
No.
With all the whizzing around that goes on in it sometimes. So that was so we work really well together.
We do.
And we worked together well when we did the bathroom. We worked well when we did the kitchen. We had no major meltdowns.
No, the major meltdowns were related to health situations.
Yes, you know, but we didn't. There was times when I knew you were frustrated. A little bit frustrated because there was nothing for you to do.
Overstimulated. Yeah, well, you know, in that sense. Yeah, like feeling obsolete is one of my absolute, like, I hate feeling obsolete. I'm just going to let the dog back in again.
Yeah, and I mean, that's, but there was genuinely times where it was just like, this is a one person task, you know. Yeah. And the further we got on with the kitchen, the more of that was kind of coming into it.
But I also think because we had been so good at being coordinated for those first few days, right? We were so coordinated, and it was like, okay, well, if I work on this while you work on that, if I paint this while you work on that, then I can paint that and then give that another coat, and then you can do that. Like, we were so... I mean, we were a lean, mean kitchen building machine.
We were. And the thing is, it's not that we became less coordinated. There was just less things to coordinate on. Yeah. And then I had a day. It was a day I was cutting the hole in the worktop for the sink.
Yeah, that was a Monday.
Yeah. Whereby I'd kind of got into bouncing mode between things. I'd been very good up until that point. It kind of came one task, get the task done, one task, get the task done. And on that day particularly, I felt it was because I was like, this is a one-shot deal. Like cutting this hole for the sink, you've got to get it right. Yeah, it's got to be to get the kitchen to work with the placement of the sink, and the carousels and the under counters and whatnot. To get all that to work, the sink had to be millimetre perfect and lining up with all the plumbing that had been done. Yeah, and whatnot. So I was having a real
there's a lot of pressure, like
frozen moment on it. So I started bouncing and doing this bit of this, doing a bit of that, doing a bit of this, doing a bit of the next thing.
And then I came home from work. So I'd gone to the office in the morning because I knew that it was going to be a tense sort of morning. Yeah. And then you sent me the picture that the hole was done. And I'm like, perfect. Yeah. Then I can go home so I'm not distracted and sucked into that. Yeah. But then by the time I came home, you were working on the base units. And then you got to getting the waste for the sink. Yeah. And that was a whole other thing. And like your energy was just...
Yeah. And it was just but also what came in that moment is there was your frustration at not having anything to do, and feeling that you weren't able to do
contributing.
Anything.
In the afternoon after I finished work.
And you were like, can I do this? Yeah. And it was like, and I was wanting I wanted to give you stuff to do. So I was going like, well, if I just do this, then you can get on with that. And I got off my one task, get it done, focus, and that started to really like impact negatively on me.
And then I got very, very frustrated with the handles. Yes. Because I couldn't get it right. I couldn't do it. But then you were like, well, it's very important that you drill it straight. And I'm
Yeah.
like, okay. So I was looking at it and I was drilling straight from where I was standing, but not from where you were standing.
Yeah.
And I was just like,
Yeah.
oh my God, and I've been in the office and your energy has been flustered all
Yes,
day.
you
And
know.
now I'm stepping into it and you're still flustered. And then I interrupt you and then I get flustered because you get even more flustered. And then the
Yeah.
fucking drill won't go and then the handle goes on quick and oh!
Yeah. So I think that was the only time really where I felt that it was just like, oh, this is not as slick as we have been.
Yeah.
But it was because we were both trying really hard we were trying too hard to make it work.
And we were also really spent, right?
Yeah.
Because I was back in work.
Mm-hmm.
So I was in work mode. I'd been in the office. I'm always drained after a day in the office. And then like we just bound, and that's the thing with us, right? Like we bounce off of each other.
Mm-hmm.
But unless someone stands still,
Mm-hmm.
we will also bounce off of each other and spiral in that negative way.
Yes.
Or maybe not negative. Negative is not the right word.
Inefficient.
But exactly.
Yeah.
Chaotic, in that chaotic
yeah.
way where like when the chaos takes over, unless someone realizes
Mm-hmm.
and stands still, that helps center the other.
Mm-hmm.
But if we're both just pinballing around, that's
you know, and that's what happened that day. I was trying to focus on getting the waste pipe and stuff like that and things in, and you were trying to get handles on, and it was just kind of like, am I doing this right and whatnot? So I have to stop and do that, and then it was
was because it didn't work. So those screws were so soft, so I ended up rounding the screw head, and then I couldn't get it out and I couldn't get it in and everything was stuck, and I was like, I won't start another handle if it's because I'm doing something wrong. And I'd kind of got a bit on I'll just fix it mode, because I was wanting to focus on that. But I knew I was getting... But then because we were both flustered, we were not very good at communicating at that.
And we were both tired.
And we were tired.
We were both tired.
We were tired, yeah.
I mean, there was no fallout. There was nothing.
No.
But it was just...
It was just like, let's park it.
Yeah.
Let's just park it.
Yeah.
We'll look at it tomorrow.
You know, so in the moment, we didn't necessarily know what was happening, but we knew something was happening.
Yeah.
And we knew we had to park it.
Yeah.
And I think that's another... real strong point with us.
Yeah. And I think we're quite good at like when someone communicates, right, this is not working.
Mm-hmm.
Like again, as I said, like stand still then becomes that anchor back into reality, grounding the situation.
Yeah.
The other one is like, oh shit, I'm spiraling.
Yeah.
That's what's happening. I'm spiraling.
Yeah. You know, so but that was that. There was, it all went, or for the most part, it went to plan, apart from the stuff that we couldn't foresee.
Yeah.
And even the stuff that we didn't necessarily foresee, we knew to expect potential issues, like the fact that the floor is an inch lower at one end than it is at the other.
Yeah, so 2 centimeters.
And somehow my brain had done the calculation without me consciously doing the calculation that we needed to drop the larder unit by 2 centimeters to compensate for that across the rest to make it work. Because I hung it in and I went, that's not right, but it works. Or sorry, that wasn't what was initially in the plan, but it works.
Yeah.
And joy of joys, because I hadn't consciously done the maths on that, but my brain had obviously just kept me right. My subconscious has kind of kept me right on it. Because if I hadn't done that, all your cabinets would have been an inch higher.
Yes.
All the way around.
Yeah.
So yeah, something had mathed itself out and calculated itself out.
Absolutely. But again, you had also been working on it since February.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, like, it was engraved on my brain
since February. Yeah. And that was where that initial kitchen quote thing actually came in a bit handy because there were drawings with like measurements and things on, even though some of them were wrong.
Yeah, I ended up not trusting them at all, you know. But
it was not from a very trustworthy source.
No, you know, and without going into every dimension of the kitchen, there was decisions that we kind of made along the way to do things that worked in our favour, you know. So from the fact we started the end nearest the sitting room, and fitted out the cabinets going away. We knew we were going to have 80 to 100 mil of space at the other end.
Yeah, so 8 to 10 centimeters.
Yeah. But we also knew, because of the way that we were doing that other end of the kitchen, it wasn't going to be a problem. You know, if it was dead space, that was the best place to have it, because it wasn't necessarily going to be of any use anyway. And it turned out perfect, because then designing for the bins and the dimensions of that, which I had kind of kept going, we'll take care of that after the rest is in, because it's a kind of bolt on, as it were.
Yeah.
It all panned out, because now the dimensions for that, for the bits that you need and the bits you can get, work perfectly.
Yeah.
Because we have that space at that end.
Yeah.
Whereas we'd originally talked about potentially leaving it at the other end next to where the fridge was, so
for storage
of like a broom and stuff like that. You know, so yeah, that all worked. Yeah. That all worked, and everything just came together like really, really nicely. Yeah. I'm really proud of the job we've done.
I am so proud of it.
Yeah.
I'm so proud of it, and I'm so impressed with us.
Yeah.
And I see that as the pièce de résistance of our friendship and what we're capable of. Like, I generally feel like there is nothing you and I wouldn't be able to complete if we set our mind to it.
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
Nothing.
For sure. You know, I thought we peaked when we did the bathroom, you know. Yeah. But I would say that the kitchen was a bigger, more complex project than the bathroom was. You know, but it hasn't posed us any additional...
No, it really hasn't.
...problems.
No.
Or challenges that we haven't been able to overcome. Yeah. You know. So yeah, that's...
So is the sink and the waste and that Monday afternoon, is that the bit that you've, like, was that, if we do peak and pit, you know, was that like the worst bit of it? Like, what was the most challenging?
I think the installation of the sink for me was the. But again, I just needed to make the cut. Yeah. I just needed to trust that my measurements were correct. I'd done it 1,000 times in my head. I'd measured it, you know, dozens of times. It was just that. But ultimately, it was a message I sent to you going, well, I'll just cut it. What's the worst case scenario is I've got another trip to IKEA to go and get another bit of worktop. Yeah. That's the worst case. That was the worst case scenario. So I was kind of catastrophizing over the potential of getting that wrong. Yeah. A bit, you know. And then how everything fitted with it afterwards. And, you know, you see yourself like it's millimeter perfect.
It is. No, it is. You know, it is.
And
spot on.
Yeah. And even when we were dropping the sink into place and whatnot, and it was kind of like, do we do this? Do we do that? Do the next? And I was like, and I just went, actually, I've got my phone in my hand. I just phoned my brother. Who's a joiner to trade. Actually, I hate people calling him, he's a carpenter. He's a proper time served carpenter.
Oh yeah, give him credit where credit is due.
Joiner just does not do him credit. And I just phoned him up and he went, just do this, and that'll be fine. And I was like, cool, fine. Well, drop the sink in, get the plumbing on. And but then again, me doing the waste kit that came with the sink, I very quickly went, nah, this is just BS. Like, this is not the best way to do it. So went out and got a couple of other bits and did it my way, as Frank Sinatra would say.
Yeah.
And it just all fitted into, because we had that 300 millimeter wide cabinet, which we wanted to get as much of the plumbing into as possible.
Yeah.
And that just wasn't going to work with the waste kit that came with the sink. So I redesigned the whole waste drop down system, and I needed to buy 2 or 3 different bits to add to change it over. And boom, and then one of the bits was leaking. And it just needed tightened up. It wasn't terrible.
But that was one of the original...
one of the original joints. It had already come put together. So I was kind of like, it wasn't one of mine. So
yeah.
So yeah, I think that was the bit that I made the hardest.
What are your top 3 things that you're most impressed with or like happiest with in the kitchen? I know there might be bits that we haven't completed yet that then end up like on that list, but like what?
Oh, well, even though it was the toughest thing, actually, the fitting of the sink is also the bit.
Absolutely,
that I'm like most chuffed with. And the underfloor heating. Yeah. The underfloor heating, because I sold you on that. Yeah. So the pressure was on for that to work as I had sold it. And there was a little bit of a hiccup.
There was,
in that
there were 2. The delivery of it, or like the size of it.
Oh yeah.
And then at the installation where one of the wires had popped out, so when we turned it on, there was an error message.
Oh yeah, so but first of all, I knew how much area was needed to install, and when the mat arrived, there was, instead of being what I thought was a meter wide, it was half a meter wide.
Yeah.
And made it really difficult. So you can jiggery pokery the mat a bit, but you can't shorten it.
Yeah.
So I ended up with about 1.5 meters of heating mat that we had to somehow jigsaw into and around spaces to use up the whole mat.
But actually, so that's one of the things that I'm most impressed with.
Yeah.
Is how we dealt with that.
Yeah.
Because, so I was crawling around on the floor.
Yeah.
And it was just such a beautiful collaboration.
Yeah.
Because, so you had literally the bird's eye view of it. But then I was down there and it just made sense. So we were talking it through and are we like, okay, so what if I cut here, cut there, cut here, do this and loop it that way? And you're like, no, I don't think so. And I was like, well... And you're like, okay, well, talk me through what your idea is. And it was just beautiful communication skills, beautiful, like, collaboration and problem solving, and just, like, giving each other, like, space to think and make suggestions and coming to that absolute symbiosis of, like, getting it to fit and just taking it one step at a time and looking at like, okay, where are we at and how do we do this? And I just like, we did not fall out and like there was absolutely nothing there, and there was just implicit trust that we would get it. And it was just like, I was just so impressed with us on that. Because that could have been a really stressful... if one of us had gone off there, flying off the handle, don't sing wicked. But if one of us had lost it there, that would have been...
Could have quickly got...
absolute meltdown. And it was just, that was so beautiful. So that's one of the things that I'm the most...
And then, as you say, then there was when I wired up the thermostat and whatnot, and I was like, okay, flick the switch, and you flick the switch, and there was an error message on the thermostat.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh lordy, like, because if we've damaged that underfloor heating mat, then we're having to take up the whole floor to fix it. But when I took the face off, I noticed that the wire
had popped out.
And I was like, yeah. So
sink on the floor. What's the third?
Sink on the floor. I just think the overall look of the kitchen. is so much better in reality.
It is exactly what I saw in my head.
Yeah. Oh, it's. I know it's exactly what you saw in your head, but for me, it just, and I had no doubts that it would look great, but it just all came together.
Yeah.
You know, and I just think the overall end result is just like magnificent.
Yeah. Like I don't get like giddily happy when I walk into the kitchen because it's not completed yet, right? It doesn't have like, and that's the perfectionist Virgo in me, but I'm like, the second all of the skirting lists and like, you know, half beats and like all of that, like when all of those last finishing touches have been completed and like everything is in the space that will forevermore be their home.
Yep.
Woe behold the person who does not put stuff back where I want it.
Yeah. Well, that's the biggest challenge for me is learning where everything is.
Because I never told you.
No,
but I think were cooking the other day with the mushrooms.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's like, where's this? Where's that? Where's this?
Yeah.
You know,
but then again, things haven't necessarily found their perfect home yet. But they have been stored. You know, I think that's when I will like get that ultra dopamine hit. Yeah.
Well, I'm just really amazed that you've thrown a heap of stuff out. But B also somehow managed to fill all the space.
Oh, I haven't.
And there's extra space. You
know? No. Oh yeah. No.
Yeah, you know, it's just kind of like
so
the stuff is better.
It is better. So stored. Obviously the carousels are a fantastic solution.
Yep.
But obviously that only allows for about a third of the stuff that was in that chaos cupboard. Right? So there's only a third of the stuff left there.
Yeah.
Now there is space on the other side because of the carousel there instead of, you know, there being no cupboard space there before. But I did need to figure out a solution for all the cleaning things, which was in the kitchen before.
Well, you've got a bit of space in.
No, I have an entire box in the cupboard of cleaning things.
Okay, that's fine.
There will not be space for.
Cut out the storage cupboard in the hallway. We can go with that. You know, we'll make a cleaning store thing. We can do anything.
Yeah.
We can do anything.
Yeah.
But no, it's been really good. It's been really good. And yeah, I'm just keen now to. I was keen today to finish off that bit of the boxing the boiler and stuff like that. But as I say, my body just had different ideas when I woke up this morning.
Yeah.
So that's that. So I think that kind of covers kitchen reno.
Well then, let's do it. Thank you so much for tuning in to Shared Frequencies and the Space Between.
We hope our conversation today has helped you find a little more clarity in your space between, whatever that may look like.
And remember, it's okay to be a work in progress. We're all just figuring it out, one frequency at a time.
So if you've enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, or share it with someone who might need to hear it or want some kitchen building tips.
Until next time, keep tuning in and finding the space that works for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.